Hello. Today I'm excited to try with you a Saint Emilion. This is Clos de l'Oratoire. Clos de l'Oratoire is a Grand Cru Classé. This is the 2015 vintage of this. I should perhaps say sometimes the classification of Saint Emilion is not always easy to follow because there's this term Grand Cru, which actually most estates in Saint Emilion are entitled to use in their classification, so it doesn't narrow it down as far as quality very much. So Grand Cru Classé is the first step up from that in terms of quality, and then above that there are a couple of levels of Premier Grand Cru. There's Premier Grand Cru Classé B, and then the top echelons, Premier Grand Cru Classé A. The classification system here was started in 1955. Clos de l'Oratoire wasn't actually raised to Grand Cru until 1969, and it's to my mind, it's an archetypal modern Saint Emilion, somewhat overshadowed by two sibling chateaux. The Count owns Canon La Gaffelière and also a sort of a garagiste property, La Mondotte, which tend to sell more expensively, but the style of all these wines is very similar. Clos de l'Oratoire is a 13-hectare estate that's to the northeast of Saint Emilion. Originally, it was actually part of Château Peyreau, but the vineyards were identified as sort of a premium set of vineyards, and then, as I say, in 1969 they were classified separately as a Cru Classé, a Grand Cru Classé. In 1972, Count Stephan's father bought the vineyards, and in 1986 it became known as Clos de l'Oratoire, having previously been, as I say, Château l'Oratoire. Significantly, in 1996, Stephan von Neipperg employed Stephan Derenoncourt, one of the now sort of leading wine consultants in Bordeaux's right bank, to consult for winemaking with them. And the style of wines that they've made together have been this sort of opulent, hedonistic style. First stage being to make sure that the grapes are picked really ripe. I mean, this has 14.5% alcohol, so certainly some ripeness going on in there. At the first stage of winemaking, once they've been picked, the grapes are destemmed, and a majority of them go into the fermenting vat as whole berries, so they're not crushed. So that gives quite a gentle extraction. The seeds, which are woody components that would give quite a bit of tannin, are initially protected from the ferment. It's the skins and the flesh of the berry that will macerate first. Maceration goes on for about 30 days with gentle pushdowns. The wine is run off into barrel. Now, traditionally, the style that's been made with the von Neipperg wines has been to have quite a lot of new oak. Sometimes up to, with this wine, sometimes up to 80% new oak, French oak barriques. This particular vintage had about 40%, so slightly cutting that back. Also to sort of try and preserve this hedonism and the style of the sort of this Merlot-dominated wine. So 90% Merlot, 10% Cabernet Franc has been the employment of malolactic conversion in barrel, and that doing that in a barrel as opposed to a tank, as you might do with a bigger property, gives sort of chocolatey coffee notes to the wine that can round it out and make it quite attractive from a young age. What else goes on? The aging lasts about 17 months, and the wine isn't fined at all. So this idea of taking these sort of rich, ripe, predominantly Merlot grapes and just trying to enhance that sort of richness, or to maintain that richness into the finished wine. So let's see what it actually tastes like instead of what I think it should taste like. Firstly, the colour is it's a dark ruby red, not quite, but very nearly opaque. The red has a slight purple note to the rim. It's not a blue purple, but there's a reddish purple there. It's not sort of getting bricky or anything like that in terms of colour. The aromas, let's see what we think of those. Gosh, now those hedonistic, ripe and opulent. You've got an intense richness of sort of black fruit. There's a chocolatiness, there's a ripeness. So initially, the fruit aromas are sort of dark red to black cherry, quite high toned. There's a dark red plum note there, maybe a slight leafy note enhancing that, but not huge. And then there are these chocolatey notes. There are also notes of sort of slight raisin notes. Again, the chocolatiness coming back, and that chocolatiness gives it all a lovely roundness. I suppose also underlying that there's a vanilla note and cedar from the oak, but again, really harmoniously bound into the fruit. So, quite attractive from that point of view. The colour is staining the sides of the glass, I should mention, and there are quite noticeable dark tears running down the side of the glass. So let's taste it. All the richness and ripeness that we've seen in the nose carries onto the palate, where again there's this sort of juicy black cherry, dark plum fruit, nice freshness, nice acidity, medium body, and the tannins are very, very smooth. There's a velvety texture to them. They're not grainy. I'm not really seeing, certainly at the beginning, not seeing sort of cedary notes coming through. It's not drying. They're being rounded out by the sort of chocolatey notes. It's not just chocolatey flavour, it's chocolatey texture in there. The 14.5% alcohol, which I talked about, doesn't, yes, the wine has roundness and weight in the mouth, but the finish isn't hot. The freshness is sufficient that actually the finish is showing that sort of juicy, dark cherry to plum fruit again. Perhaps as the finish opens, there is a little bit of sort of cedary drying note, but again, the chocolatiness is coming in to round that out, and the flavours are lasting really nicely. I think this is a wine at the beginning of its drinking window. I think you could very happily keep this for another 20 years if you have quite a lot of patience, because actually it's really attractive and open and ripe now. Yes, I think it would benefit from a year or two just to smooth out a little more, but it's very attractive to drink, and yes, an interesting wine. So thank you for listening. Clos de l'Oratoire 2015. Goodbye now.